So, you're telling me that this little white pellet has nothing in it that can actually help someone heal?
Yeah, well, that's what a lot of people think when they first learn or hear about homeopathy. But let's take a moment to break it down because there's so much more to this modality than meets the eye. Welcome to Is That Homeopathy, where ancient wisdom meets modern healing. We're here to demystify homeopathy and share practical, heart centered insights for your holistic journey. Let's get into it.
Welcome back to Is That Homeopathy? And today we're diving into how homeopathy actually works. So, let's buckle up.
Yeah. Let's get started with the basics because homeopathy is built on a few core principles.
Right. So, we often hear like cures like, and that a substance that can cause symptoms in a healthy person can help heal those same symptoms in someone who is sick.
Right. And a couple other principles would be the principle of minimum dose. So we're just looking for that perfect sweet spot, the minimum amount needed to stimulate the healing response. Um, we're not looking for anything more or harsh. We're looking to encourage the vital force, not force it. Um, and single dose. So that's going to be one remedy at a time, a single remedy, not four different remedies in one single substance, just one at a time. And that may shift as you go, but we're still just working with a single remedy.
Right. Lastly, there's also the principle of totality of symptoms or treating the whole person. So we're not looking at just one symptom that an individual may be experiencing. We are looking at everything that's going on across all symptoms. Particularly because it's all connected, right? So your emotional state, your energy, and your physical symptoms within your body are all intertwined and they're all talking to each other.
Right. So homeopathy taps into our body's own innate ability to heal, and it gives us just the right nudge that we need to get there.
So this is really kind of where people usually start to question things or raise an eyebrow, right? When we start really kind of diving into um, the principles and how these remedies are made. And so we touched on it a little bit in one of our previous episodes where the remedies are made by diluting a substance multiple times and we shake it then between each step.
Right. And this process is called succussion. um, the dilution itself makes a substance that may be toxic no longer toxic, and the shaking or potentizing transfers the energetic imprint of the substance. So this gives us more possibilities to work with certain things that other modalities cannot because they would be toxic in their original form.
So it's almost kind of like an echo. So you have the original message of the echo, which would be considered the substance itself. And then the remedy is that echo, where the echo is still carrying the same signal, right? But it's not the original substance. It's the imprint or the energetic signature of that substance.
Right. And when we're thinking about dilution, we're not talking about just once or twice. Remedies are often diluted up to 30 times or more. By the time it gets to you and you take it, it's not chemically active, but it's energetically alive.
And these different potencies that we have range from there's some, 3C, 6C, 9C, all the way up to the Q potencies or the LM potencies. And each of them are used differently in case by case. And some of them go deeper in the physical, some of them go deeper in the emotional, some of them are a more broader range across physical and emotional. And so the selection of potencies is really where things start to become more of an art in
Mhm.
homeopathy when you're looking at how is the energy and frequency of the vital force responding, and we want to match that with the
Right.
energy and frequency with the potency of the remedy that's selected.
Right. So somebody with a weaker vital force that's older, been sick for a long time, we may start with a smaller amount or a it's higher, lower potency. But for someone like a child who has a really strong vital force, you don't necessarily have to worry too much in that area because they're going to respond well. So that's where a little bit of practice comes in and just awareness about overall evaluating like what is the state of this person when picking that the dose and quantity. So it's not about the quantity so much as it is about the resonance.
Yeah. Um, how do we explain this scientifically, though?
That's a good question. Some researchers believe that it has to do with water memory. This is the idea that water can retain the structure or imprint of substances that were once in it. And there's more information on this topic by study by Dr. Emoto. There's a YouTube video called Water, Consciousness, and Intent that you can find on YouTube if you just want to kind of explore that theory a little more. So it's fun to look into.
Water memory is fascinating to me. Um, and I would highly recommend looking into that, diving well down that rabbit hole. One of the other fields of research that scientists are exploring is the field of nanopharmacology. And this is essentially where they're looking at how different like nanoparticles or nanosubstances interact with the life form and the vital force as well. So trying to understand what's happening on the smallest of small scales, to see how that exchange happens, between the remedy and the life force as well.
Right. And while we can't fully explain all of the aspects of how it works yet, the clinical results speak for themselves. The people that have overcome, insane obstacles that they were told were impossible, like those stories speak for themselves. So even if we don't have the perfect scientific explanation for something, doesn't mean that in the future we won't. And it doesn't mean that this is not a great potential option for somebody um, that doesn't necessarily have any other options. So it's a beautiful form of medicine.
Right. And, as you're saying that, I'm thinking, well, first of all, there are thousands of cases out there where we have seen success. And I think, one thing that's really important to keep in mind, is that concept of individualization, right?
Hmm.
So when you're coming from a more allopathic background, you hear a lot about there's this looking for the horse versus the zebra.
Hmm.
And that's really kind of getting at the you're in allopathic medicine, you're treating the average of a
Hmm.
condition, right? Whereas homeopathically, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? Like if that's, the modality that you choose, but homeopathically, you kind of have to deconstruct that belief a little bit and understand that we're all these beautiful zebras, right? We're all individual
Hmm.
and we're treating the individual. And so that experience of that one person is really what we're getting at. And so we can't discount that. There are scientific ways to support. Um, the individual experience, or to, prove that the individual experience matters. And there are case studies out there that
Hmm.
that do show that. But I think that that's an important distinction and an important um, place where you really kind of have to rewire your thoughts, and understand that this is individualized medicine, and there are thousands of individual cases that show that this does work for those people.
Right. And if you think about the way that they do, medical trials and stuff, it's harder to do that with homeopathy because it's individualized. Um, so the single cases at a time actually to me are a better representation than say, oh, we gave 1,000 people, belladonna for a headache. It's not that that might not work for many of them, but it's just when we're comparing homeopathy to some of these other types of trials, it's like it's hard for it to really shine in that situation because it's individualized. And when you're doing 1,000 people and giving them the same thing, well, we're already kind of veering off, right? And so I feel like those personalized stories are just so beautiful and I think homeopathy shines better when you're just actually listening to someone's personal experience with it, and how they've been able to overcome things. So,
Yeah. Scientifically, I think you really have to dive into understanding the differences between quantitative and qualitative
mm,
research, right?
hmm,
And how you prove things with each of them, right?
right.
So, and homeopathy is very much in line with more qualitative
Mm-hmm.
methodologies, as opposed to more quantitative methodologies, which is more of the allopathic wheelhouse, right? And so I think, if you're out there listening and you do start diving into, the science behind things, take a look at qualitative methods and understanding qualitative science, scientific research, and that will help you kind of wrap your head around how these things can be proved, if you will, in the
Right.
science.
Right. All right. So I guess let's veer into talking a little bit about why it's different.
Yeah, so homeopathy, I think one of the primary ways that it's different is, aside from the principles that we've touched on, is that homeopathy doesn't focus on suppressing symptoms, right? So it works with the body and not against the body. So we're not trying to stop the body from doing things. We're trying to help the body move through those things in an efficient way, and to remove that blockage that's causing those symptoms, from occurring, not just telling our body, hey, we don't want to hear about that thing going on, so we're just going to shut it off. We don't Homeopathy doesn't do that.
Right. As homeopaths, we view the symptoms as messengers, not enemies. And the goal is to try to understand and resolve the root of the imbalance. So the symptoms are trying to get us to notice, like to show us the disturbance, like what's going on. And sometimes they may just need a little help and support along the way, but they're not bad. We don't see them as bad. We see them as just here's what you needed to get our attention. So it's almost like the body is trying to educate us and communicate, and it speaks through symptoms since it doesn't speak through a language. So symptoms are the body's language.
Yeah, and I love that, like, symptoms are a mode of communication. They're
Right.
not an enemy, because the symptoms are your body. That's like you don't want to view your body as an enemy, right?
Hmm.
You are your body. You work like it's a team, right?
Right. Right.
And if you view it as an enemy, you're mentally, what is that? What are you telling yourself, right? Like, you're telling yourself you have to fight against yourself and not like
Right.
work in in
Harmony.
in harmony, yeah, in
Mhm.
synchrony. So I think though sometimes where people get caught up is that it's not a quick fix.
Hmm.
It's not like I'm gonna take the remedy and go right back to work, right? Our body is communicating these symptoms to us for a reason, and we also need to listen to our body. So if our body is telling us to slow down, it's going to whisper that at first, and then it'll eventually get louder and louder and louder until we recognize it. But when it speaks to us, we have to listen and we have to honor our body, which is something that is extremely hard to do in today's society. With that mentality of, go, 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 climb the ladder, who can get there the fastest, who can, do the most kind of thing. We have to kind of pause and reconnect with ourselves and slow down and not just always look for the quick fix or the fastest way to get there.
Right. And it's hard when you're really coming up against a society. It's like, sorry, you only have 3 sick days and you really need a whole week
Yeah.
uh to fully heal, you know. Rest is so important when we are under the weather. And sometimes if we could just rest, then we wouldn't need a remedy or a medicine or anything. But the reason people feel called to take a lot of these over the counter suppressants is because they're like, I have to work tomorrow. I
Mhm.
will lose my job. And so I understand, you know, I understand the desire to just turn it off. But, you know, we want to be gentle and loving with our body. We don't want to force it into submission. And I don't really know how to fix the whole structure of society, but there is something to just taking it easy, listening and giving your body what it needs. Maybe it just needs, you know, some broth and rest and steam, and maybe it does need, you know, a couple doses of a remedy. Um, Maybe not. I think sometimes people jump to remedies a little quick, even because they just like, oh, turn it off because that's how we're trained.
Yeah.
That's how we've been raised. So it's like, okay, I have a sniffle. I need to do whatever I can do right now to turn this off because I have to work tomorrow, right?
Mhm.
So it's like just looking at it, everything about your life from a different perspective.
Yeah. And that's also not to say that it can't work quickly,
Oh,
because
right, right,
there are times where I have given a remedy and seen a response almost instantaneously.
right.
But I think, you can't always go. And when that happens, oh my gosh, it's amazing. Like that is like, it's the coolest thing to see a remedy, a well-matched remedy do its work.
Hmm.
But a lot of times, when you are taking remedies, the remedy match is only going to be as good as the information that you've received from the person with the symptoms, too, right?
Hmm.
And so sometimes people are so disassociated or disconnected from their body, it's
Hmm.
hard to describe what's happening, right? And then it's hard to translate that into homeopathic speak. And so oftentimes when you first start out, you may not see things working as quickly as you may have heard, because you have to learn the language of your body. You have to learn the language of the remedy. You have to learn these remedies like they're your friends. I mean, how many times have we heard about that
Yeah.
in in class and in school about the remedies are our friends.
Hmm.
And the deeper a relationship you have with your body and understanding your body, the deeper of a relationship you develop with these remedies, the better you're going to be able to recognize the symptom picture in an individual as a remedy picture, and being able to match those two up to really see that like magic happen.
Right. So the closer you can get to matching it, the quicker um and the deeper it goes. So a lot of times, you know, people won't have the perfect or there's no perfect match, right? You're not always going to look exactly like it. You're trying to get as close as you possibly can to matching it. But sometimes we don't have one on hand, so sometimes you do the second best one and it still works, but you have to dose a little bit more and it may go on a little bit longer, but you are still supporting the vital force. So that's another thing is like, even if you're not matching it perfectly in the beginning, you're not hurting yourself, which is awesome. And the body always responds to a remedy, even if it's not quite the most desirable one in that moment. So you will come out feeling stronger and more vital once you do overcome some of those little acutes. So,
Yeah. So, really, then, kind of in sum, as to how homeopathy works, it's not really by brute force that it's
mm-hmm.
working. It's through frequency and resonance and intelligence and connection and really deep connection that it's working through.
Right. And when the right remedy is found, it can feel like magic. But this is just the beauty of science and nature working together.
Yeah. So we're still learning more and more every day about this.
If you're curious to learn more, then drop a comment or connect with us, and we would love to hear from you. So just let us know what you think.
Yeah, and the more you ask, the more you'll wonder, is that homeopathy?
Yes. All right. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to Is That Homeopathy, where ancient wisdom meets modern insight. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might be curious too. If you have any questions or topics you'd like for us to explore, drop them in the comments. We're here to keep the conversation flowing. Until next time, stay curious, stay balanced, and remember, healing begins with awareness.